pour la raison que le français est mon quatrième langue, je peux vous montrer la meilleure façon de l'apprendre.
These steps will take you from 0 to B2 and beyond. There will be two paths that should be occurring simultaneously. These are the active study route and the passive immersion route. Let's focus on the active one for now. The first step is to learn how to pronounce and read the words. Knowing the sounds in the language is vital, and unlike Japanese or other pitch-oriented languages, French pronunciation doesn't have a steep learning curve. This can be solved once off by learning IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. I've created an ANKI deck with the symbol and sound recordings. But why learn IPA? This will enable you to pronounce words correctly simply by reading the entry of it in a dictionary. It also visualizes pronunciation, making it easier to remember. Through exposure, this eventually becomes intuitive, because otherwise the French words, the spelling versus the phonetic pronunciation, it differs way too much to make any sense for non-native speakers. Learning the IPA for French should be done before you learn any French grammar and vocabulary. Once you've accomplished reading IPA and French pronunciation, the second step is to learn sentences. Note that I never encourage you to learn vocabulary on its own. Sentences are more natural and provide context, making recognition easier. Remember, you'll basically only encounter sentences in the real world. No one will write a vocabulary list that wins a literature prize. There are two ways to learn sentences. The first way is through this ANKI deck I've made. It progresses from extremely simple sentences and phrases to quotes of famous people and book extracts. The order of the cards make it accessible for beginners, and each new word is defined and the IPA is provided. This means that you'll be able to pronounce every word correctly from the get-go. This is only recognition. If you can read the sentence and you have a basic idea of what's being communicated, then that's great. Another way to learn sentences is to pick a French book which interests you, and it could be a high-level one, and write a sentence out. Each unfamiliar word you search up and write the definition. Repeat this process until you work through the book, or, as what will most likely happen, you learn so many new words from these sentences that after 40 or so pages, there are so few unfamiliar words that writing it out isn't worth it anymore. This is what I did with Manon Lescaut. But how are you supposed to look these words up? Watch this video that I made on French dictionaries. This, along with all the other resources mentioned, are listed in the description. Now, you're able to pronounce French naturally and even understand most sentences. This is a grasp of the language. Sometimes there also needs to be some active grammar studying. The monster of French is verb conjugation. Unfortunately, there's no way around it but some brute force memorization. I've also made an ANKI deck for conjugation. What's critical is that unlike for sentences which you use recognition, you need to be able to recall how a verb is conjugated, especially for the common irregulars. There are also free online grammar guides. I used this one. I then made a bunch of notes from it. This was the high energy, active part of learning French. On the passive side, there's immersion and having fun in the language. It's important to balance these two aspects to maintain your motivation, but also to see improvements. The internet has made immersion through reading, visual, and audio in French easy and free. For reading the Astérix et Obélix et les Aventures de Tintin were motivating reads without too much difficulty in the beginning. Two key criteria are that it interests you and that it's near your level. Audio can involve converting series, videos, audiobooks, podcasts, or radio dramas to MP3 and listening to it. The curious thing about listening to a foreign language is that after enough time, you naturally become able to distinguish when a word begins and ends. At the start, it all sounds like a blur, and like French people talk way too fast. But keep listening, and eventually it will sound like chunks, instead of a whole sound blob. If you keep at these two branches, you're well on your way to being able to enjoy anything in French. But since this is all on your own and you're probably only receiving input, what about your output? A recent technology development has helped me to improve my weakest French point, writing. This is ChatGPT 4.0, using the free version. At the start I asked for writing prompts, but now I can come up with a topic on my own. I write a half a page or so, then take a photo and send it to ChatGPT. I prompt it to correct my French, fix the spelling and grammar errors, and make the phrases natural. Within seconds I have feedback and can mark my writing, as if I had a tutor. While at this stage AI lacks true reasoning and is rather weak on details, large language models, LLMs, can be trusted to use the most natural language based on the enormous amounts of data and probability. This writing is something that can come when the basics are established, however. So go through these and divide and conquer. Bonne chance.